السيدات والسادة، رحبوا معنا مجددا بالأستاذة هادلي جامبل المذيعة في قناة CNBC وأعضاء جلستها النقاشية.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome back anchor from CNBC, Hadley Gamble.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us for one of our final panels of the day. And I'm surrounded by some of the bright young minds of Bahrain, which is very exciting. Today we're going to be talking about what young people can do now that they've been empowered by governments in the region, particularly here in Bahrain and also across the Gulf Arab states as well. What are young people doing with that opportunity? And I think we're going to talk a little bit about the challenges that you face, some of the things you've done to get around those challenges, and frankly, what else needs to be done and what you need to hear from your leadership to move the ball forward, because it's all about moving the ball forward. Now, I want to kick off actually with the lady to my right. Now, Wafa, we've talked a lot about women empowerment in the region. We just saw 2 major conferences for women in business in this region. Talk to me a little bit about that, because we really want to do a shared experience here.
So I think, it's quite loud. First of all, it's a real honor to be here. My name is Wafa Al-Abeidat. I'm a Bahraini entrepreneur. I manage a team of 20 incredible women from Bahrain. So I'll just give a little introduction to that question. How I see myself playing a huge role in Bahrain in this transformational space is threefold. One, really ensuring my business is profitable, is sustainable, and has every opportunity to scale. And that means I hire more people, I hire more women, I get more people off the job employment market to further grow the firm and to add value to Bahrain. Number 2 is to empower myself as a woman, as an entrepreneur, to ensure that I am a contributor to Bahrain and I can add value and I'm able to share my thoughts. And the more I empower myself, the more influence I get, the more I can create positive change. And lastly is I look at Hamad, my colleague, as someone who's here to serve. I'm here to serve as well. I'm here to give back and contribute. I'm an active role member, and I hold my own self responsible and accountable to do great work and to provide impact. Now, to answer your question, last year I looked at the gender equality gap report. Bahrain was ranked quite low. We're country number 122 out of 146. Now, this is a positive thing. There's a lot of incredible work that can be done, so there's opportunity. I went ahead and created the Women Power Summit, the largest summit for women leaders in Bahrain across MENA. 1,000 women attended, 60 organizations rallied behind us, 40 media partners, and we served women. So in that space, we tackled leadership challenges and how we can get more women into leadership roles, which is something I'm really, really passionate about.
And when you look at what's happening a bit more broadly regionally, you're obviously seeing a lot of momentum behind women's empowerment and young people's employment in Saudi Arabia as well, for example. But what do you think are the challenges to that now?
So I'll just talk a bit about the summit, because that was fresh and that really ended 2 days ago. My biggest challenge setting that initiative up was getting the support and the rallying I needed behind to get this up. Now, again, I'm not a complainer. I hold myself accountable to achieve my goals. However, on a decision-making level, you would find that the support is there. As an entrepreneur, when you walk into a space, that minister, that government official, heads of corporations, heads of banks, understand the value of what it means to be an entrepreneur. We are contributors to the economy. We're solution providers. Our Minister of Finance said that yesterday. I'm going to quote him on that. That was incredible. And we're very resourceful. We'll work harder than anybody you know. We're extremely optimistic to the point of being naive. That's what people keep saying. You're incredibly optimistic, and we have to be optimistic. But my challenge was I don't need to go to a decision maker to get my support. I should be able to go to a manager level, a head of department, to be able to get the support I need to be able to get my initiatives to move forward and launch. So that was the biggest challenge I faced. And again, I want to be a part of that conversation to see how we can ensure that across the board, the support is there. We're not running a charity. We need the right support. We need the right backing across all boards to be able to support us to launch our projects and initiatives.
And it is all about execution, isn't it? Fatima, I want to bring you in here as well. When we talk about the execution, how do we move the ball forward there? With execution.
Yeah, one of the biggest issues I think we face is getting it right at the implementation level. I think this is a great forum for talking about our vision, talking about the high-level policy at the highest levels of government, where they see the government moving, where they see the country moving, and what goals they want to achieve. They can establish the laws, they can put the rules in place, but at the end of the day, it's actually boots on the ground that are going to put those laws and rules into action. So the devil's in the detail, you know, every individual who is tasked with the responsibility for implementing this vision, implementing those laws, do they understand what the objective is? You know, when they put it into practice, are they actually living in the ethos of those laws? So we need a lot
I want
of
to bring
training.
you in here because as director of research, do people understand? I mean, is that what's holding it back?
I think I definitely agree with Wafa. I think an important challenge that we need to tackle very early on is the decentralization of decision making. In some offices, in some ministries, I think that's the case. In others, perhaps they're moving in the right direction, but they're not quite there, as I understand from Wafa. We had a discussion earlier, and she mentioned some of the points or the challenges that she's been facing as an entrepreneur. And as a government official, I can definitely say that we acknowledge this challenge, and we are trying to tackle it head on. In the office of the First Deputy Prime Minister, we realized that the decision making needs to be decentralized, and we need to empower the youth. So one of the programs that His Royal Highness the Crown Prince has institutionalized is called the Fellowship Program. So we handpick about 15 individuals from various government ministries and take them on board to work with us for a whole year, an intensive program that is more or less an on-the-job training. And the idea and the goal of that program is then these 15 individuals, bright individuals, now have this instilled mentality to serve, whether it be the citizens of Bahrain or the private sector, whatever it may be. And it's not just a job. You're not just in the public sector to, work from 7 to 2 or whatnot. You're there to serve, to execute, and to serve the people of Bahrain and the vision, ultimately. So going back to the program, we have these 15 individuals coming to the office every year and then embarking on their journey of reform, basically. Yeah.
When we look at what's happening within the fintech space, there's a lot of excitement about what these governments can do to empower young people, empower entrepreneurs, and really bring fintech into the ecosystem. But are we there yet, Khalid?
If we spoke a year ago about where we are, there was pretty much nothing. But then looking a year later, Bahrain is firmly on the global map. And that's because there was a high-level vision that was set out. We're pretty serious here about developing the fintech ecosystem. And it's a realization that if we want to be a knowledge and innovation-driven economy, we have to be very serious, and we have to do a lot of groundwork. And if I look at fintech, and if I look at Bahrain very specifically, I know that financial services is the second largest contributor to GDP. It's the largest non-oil sector. So we have to be ready for the change. And a lot of work has gone in. There's a dedicated fintech and innovation unit at the central bank. That's phenomenal. We have an innovative regulatory framework to test. We, in FinTech Bay, when everybody was launching fintech hubs, for example, and Bahrain, we decided that the best way to do it is not to go purely government-backed, purely private sector-backed, but do it as a public-private partnership. Because individually and collectively, we have to move forward. And as much as there's a lot of developments that are happening, we're still at an early stage, and that's the really exciting part about the journey where we are. And so I think people do realize that Bahrain is now taking fintech very seriously. In the region, we're starting to see other jurisdictions also look at fintech seriously, and they're looking at it from a very strategic perspective. And if you look at things, financial services underpins a lot of different things. And it's a good way to encourage innovation and upskill, develop talent, and make the nation a smart nation. And so a lot has happened, but we're still in the beginning, which is exciting.
Early stages yet. You wanted to add on to that?
Yeah, I actually wanted to add something to that. I think fintech is going to be a great test case of how the region and Bahrain, GCC in particular, move forward, and how the old interfaces with the new. You know, we're talking about youth and leadership and the way to the future. Fintech is a test bed for that. It affects the financial sector. It's disrupting the financial sector. It's the back spine of the economy. So the regulators have to get involved, and there's going to have to be new regulations in place. Bahrain has a great opportunity to put itself on the world map, because nobody knows where fintech is headed. Nobody has a solid, established set of regulations. This is a new game, fresh start, where everybody has an even playing field. So how our existing regulators who need to be there, need to be part of the dialogue, need to continue to regulate and control the financial sector, interface with the disruptors, the creators, the people who are placing themselves in fintech bay, that's going to be a very important dialogue to be had, and to see how
If I can add a point, actually, which I think is important. A lot has happened in terms of groundwork, and we're in the beginning. But, to me, fintech is a mindset. It's an ethos about how you want to do things, how you want to collaborate. Wafa mentioned that, she doesn't need to go to the decision maker to be talking to different people. And it's that mindset where, entrepreneurs could be mixing with decision makers, could be mixing with all sorts of levels of institutions, fintechs mixing with banks, other institutions. That's what we need. And the moment you have that, with the support of regulatory framework, a lot of amazing things would happen.
And I think also at the end of the day, we're just a causeway away from Saudi Arabia, the region's biggest economy. I want to bring you guys in here as sort of the representatives of Saudi Arabia in this space. We're talking about building an ecosystem. We're talking about engaging with young people. We all know the statistics. What are we missing, though?
So my name is Yaman. I work at Olive Tree Capital. So we're very much focused on some new technologies in agriculture, tech, and biotech, because there are regional problems that are quite unique. We have a very high diabetes and obesity rate. And agriculture, we have a big challenge globally, but especially in the region, in supplying the food supply for all these people. And unless agriculture is severely revolutionized, we will not be able to feed that amount of people. We have a unique challenge with scarce land, scarce water, climate change, and an explosive population. But we also have an opportunity, because cities like Bahrain, or countries like Bahrain, as well as new cities like NEOM, could be the test bed for a lot of these new technologies. So why not have the center of agriculture tech be in this region? Maybe initially as an investor, finding the right opportunities in the MIT ecosystems or the Stanfords of the world, but also bring it to the prototyping phase where we could build the largest indoor farm in the world. We have the land, we have the talent, we have the capital, and now we have the urgent need. Sustainability and sustainable investments used to be viewed as a charitable pursuit, or maybe something that's exclusive to Bill Gates. But today, the returns actually align exactly with the important problems to solve. Diabetes were off the charts in this region. There are many companies looking at adding back microbes to the gut in the human microbiome to actually deal with diabetes. So we have a unique... I
think delivering McDonald's by scooter is probably not great for the problem either.
That doesn't help, right? So finding these advanced technologies, leveraging the region as a small concentrated testbed that is by default quite young and has very forward-leading decision makers, as we see. Whether in Bahrain, whether in Saudi, we have some of the most forward-thinking governments relatively, or at least this kind of uncapped ambition. So we stand in a very unique opportunity where finally population, government, capital can all align, and we can actually lay the groundwork to leverage these scientific breakthroughs, especially if we look at foreign administrations cutting back on research funding, cutting back on environmental focus, which you see in the news every week. So we're in a unique opportunity.
When you think about what happens next, though, to continue to move this forward, there are challenges, there are questions about, as we say, execution, and whether or not these governments are really going to have the human resources, the human capital to do that. Is that going to be a problem, do you think?
Well, I think the issue could only be described with trust. Young people, entrepreneurs need to trust the government, and the government needs to trust young people and entrepreneurs. So all of them, each party is trying to do good for the country itself or the economy itself. No one is trying to say that, oh, I'm better than you, I'm in the public sector, no, I am better, I'm in the government center, I am a decision maker, etc. So once we try to build that trust and we make it quantifiable, we give it so the people in the government can hand over some of the tasks to the young people, and some also of the contracts that we give, that they give usually to the international companies. Once you start empowering all of these people, then you start gaining their trust. Now their money then, the cycle of the money will go back to their economy itself. So it will benefit each party. And the other thing maybe that we could tackle is so I come from academia, and one of the things that we observe, that we invest a lot in education. Saudi Arabia is one of the countries that invests, I think, a lot more than the majority of the countries that exist currently on the map. But we don't see the outcome of it yet. And the reason is we don't have an engine or a way to transform technologies or IPs that we get out of the universities into the market. And this is something that we need the government to play a role in, since they are the ones who are responsible of building a good economy, building a good higher education system, per se.
So I just want to take it back to a comment that you mentioned, and this is also echoing Hassan Haidar yesterday when he said Bahrain should be seen as a test bed, as a place of proof of concept that happens. Now we have FinTech Bay, which is amazing. My challenge, especially when I work with my clients, is we have the accelerators, we have the incubators, we claim we have the investment as well, and I think that's also a whole other challenge. Are those doors opening for these companies to integrate with, to welcome them, to say, let's fail together? As of now, where I'm standing, we have FinTech Bay, which is wonderful, and we have all these initiatives. But when entrepreneurs knock on banks' doors to request a meeting with a CEO or a decision maker, that door is not opening. There are more no's than yeses, and there's a lot of fear. So my biggest challenge is, right now, especially when I'm consulting and advising these guys, we are claiming to be a FinTech hub, but we need institutions today to change mindset. We need them to say, we will fail, so we'll get behind you because you're a local company, you're a local brand, you are local entrepreneurs. If we don't rally behind you and help you scale up and possibly fail in the process, it's not going to work. Right now, they're getting a lot of fear. That meeting, instead of happening tomorrow, is getting postponed to the next month, and that urgency is not there. So I feel there's a lot of missed opportunities and there's inefficiency. So I think we need to get behind our local Team Bahrain entrepreneurs. I'm using Team Bahrain in a different way, I know, but I'm saying that there is definitely a gap there that we need to address, and it's a huge challenge that I know entrepreneurs are facing right now.
Look, I agree with you. Going through the exercise with a lot of the different people that were behind the initiative of FinTech Bay, it was an extremely difficult undertaking. And the reason is, you have individual institutions or partners that are operating at different speeds. Now, others are very early, others are very late, but I do agree with you that I think if we move beyond fear, resistance, and willing to experiment and learn, I think that's where the opportunity is. So even when FinTech Bay was constructed, how do you work with somebody whom you might see as a direct competitor, but yet again have the bigger picture in mind? And so even as we move forward, the challenge remains is how can you and the other institutions and partners move as fast as you are willing to move? I agree with you, there are a lot of opportunities that could happen immediately. There are phenomenal talent in this country and in this region, and I think if we do not give them the opportunities at the speed that is required, they'll definitely be missed. But I think this is something that is changing both on the private sector side and something that is changing also on the government side. But I do agree that some of the speed needs to be done significantly quicker to realize what you just mentioned.
Let me just add to that, if I may. I think the institutional framework that, at least in Bahrain, the institutional framework that the government has set to support the entrepreneurs, all the entrepreneurs in Bahrain, acknowledges that now. It realizes that there was always support, perhaps it was predominantly financial support. And now we need a different kind of support. So non-financial advisory services need to be provided to these entrepreneurs. So as I say this, Sheikh Mohammed bin Isa, the chairman of Temkeen, the Labour Fund, walks in, and maybe he'll talk about that later. But Temkeen are now developing new programs that go beyond the financial support to the entrepreneurs, including, door opening opportunities, mentorship, and whatnot. So it's not just the grants that these entities give out to entrepreneurs, not just the incubation, but others as well.
So not just the ecosystem.
To build on that, I think we need to even expand our scope farther and think of this as creating the ecosystem. It's not just about providing the capital, it's not just about providing support. You need every part of the supply chain. So that includes integrating international expertise and know-how from abroad. We don't need to reinvent every part of the wheel, and this is where a lot of us come in. I don't speak for myself in particular, but my experience parallels that of many who have taken the stage where, don't look at me as a singular unit in this ecosystem. I come with the entire resources of the global institution that I work with. So I have 2,000 lawyers at my disposal who can share with you the know-how in the area of fintech, the area of cybersecurity, in the area of venture capital. And we need to leverage that. We have the roots here on the ground, but we also have the branches all over the world. And we need to start thinking of ourselves as part of that global ecosystem. We're going to be global competitors. So thought partnership, I think, in addition to the seed capital.
I want to jump to the floor now for some questions because I know that we wanted to have a very interactive session. So if I could get the first question.
Thank you indeed. And I'm honestly very proud. I'm about to cry when I see our future in such great hands. We have great givers. We've been used to be takers. But I think what you're doing, guys, is great. Just one thought that I didn't think it was mentioned, at least not loudly, is how do we export Bahrain to the Gulf, to the Arab world, and to the rest of the world. I think we can do a lot. I'm Akram Miknas from Promo 7 Holding. Thank you.
I'd like to take it. Yeah, so I think that this forum says a lot, right? The title even says Gateway to the Gulf. So we're not here calling for investors to come to just set up in Bahrain. We're not just selling Bahrain. We're saying, Bahrain needs to be the gateway to the Gulf. We complement each other, right? So we collectively we have a market north of $1.5 trillion. That's huge. Bahrain is, yes, perhaps a small economy in relative terms, but we can be the door to that $1.5 trillion market. And we are doing everything we can to put ourselves or position ourselves in that direction. And again, this forum itself is a great testament to that. The title says it all. We are the gateway to the Gulf.
If I can add to that as well, scaling up is a huge buzzword. Everybody's been talking about Bahrain being a testing bed and a proof of concept space. I still think there needs to be a lot of conversation on how we can scale regionally. Bahrain deploys a lot of resources, and if we're going towards startup space and fintech and technology, we should be connecting to our embassies. They can be connectors. We can be using portals across Bahrain, across the world that are under our payroll, under Bahrain's payroll, to act as connecting. So everything could be an accelerator. Universities should be accelerators. Banks should have accelerators. Within organizations, we should be having labs and integration with entrepreneurs. We also need more expertise that can assist us with scaling. I see Jamal Fakhro there on the left-hand side. If you can put your hand up. He's a great mentor. He gave me 1 hour of his time, and one of the very few people that has scaled successfully out of Bahrain and was able to provide some insight to me and has really changed my life. And we need more expertise, especially in fintech to sit with these companies that can help them scale. We need much more on the ground, a lot more consultants who are specialized. You sit with a consultant who can help you scale on a service-based company is really different than a tech-based company. There are consultancy firms that don't even have the right people to evaluate the value of a company. So there's a lot to be done on the scaling side, but we need to be resourceful. We need to look at what do we have around the country, around the world, and we need to provide that support system to our startups and our tech companies.
And unfortunately, I'm being told we're out of time, but I have to say, as someone who gets to moderate conferences like this quite often, this has been one of the best panels that I've had in the last few years. So thank you all very, very much for joining us.